Hey, look at us. We're live, sort of.
Yes, we're almost live.
Yeah,
Yeah,
almost. We are doing another pre recorded episode for you guys because it's kind of fun and we
yeah,
thought that you guys might like it. So, Ben, we did something kind of fun with this one, something we haven't done before, right?
yeah. It's always fun to turn over a new leaf, and that's one of the reasons that we're pre-recording it. Is in order to do this, we need to do a little video editing to make sure that what you hear is accurate to what we recorded.
Exactly, exactly. So, we decided to do some microphone comparison for you guys, and I'm excited about it. It was fun for me to have a box of microphones and just sing some stuff. And so, basically, Ben, why don't you just explain to everybody what, just generally what we did, and then we can kind of take it from there.
Well, I think people ask all the time, why do they make so many different microphones? Why are there so many different kinds? A microphone's a microphone, right? Like every mic is the same, right? You just it's a black stick with a ball on top, or maybe a trapezoid on top, or maybe it's a silver stick or whatever. Anyway, so I think there's a lot of questions about mics, and of course we've done some shows where we talked about the polar patterns, we've talked about the sensitivity, we've talked about frequency response and all these kinds of things. We talked about condenser versus dynamic. Great show. Please feel free to go back and watch that. You can find the videos on the Facebook page. Uh, but but what about hearing is believing? And
Hmm.
that is not to say that one mic is better than another. I think in some ways you could categorically say that, no doubt. You could say this mic is better than this mic, but in many other ways, it's nuanced and it's specific to the performer and it's specific to the application. Do you use side fills and wedges, or do you use in ears and lots of things?
Hmm.
So it just so happens that, we've got a guy who's got a connection to a bunch of gear,
Yes.
and it just so happens that we have a world class recording artist. I think I'm pointing to your window. No, you're this way. Anyway, the only other person in the video, that would be the recording artist. So what Andrea did is she took this box of mics, and you got to admit it was kind of fun, right? Like you're,
Oh,
you're
totally.
kind of a gearhead too, right?
Yeah.
So and she recorded the same lyrics very consistently. By the way, I was very impressed. I'm like, wow, that takes some chops to do that, 10
Thanks.
times, 11 times. And so what you get to hear is Andrea singing the same thing on different mics, and the only change is the mic. And you'll hear some very strong differences at points, and you'll hear some very subtle, nuanced differences at other points. And because it's Andrea's voice, I'm actually going to let her talk more about what she heard and those kinds of things. Um,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah, I'll let you take it back over from here.
Okay, cool. Well, I think it was really interesting and fun to just have all of these different mics and be able to compare them side by side, because a lot of times it's, days, weeks, months in between different microphones, right? Because like if I'm singing in my church, I always have the same microphone. And so it's always the same sound. Or, when I'm out at different churches, when I do workshops or lead with worship teams, that kind of thing, you know, then I do get different microphones everywhere I go. But again, it's, sometimes weeks or months in between. So it was fun to have them side by side. And I would say that I definitely heard differences in how the mic received my voice and kind of how it came through. And probably part of it, I really tried hard not to pay attention to. I didn't research the cost of all of them beforehand because sometimes there might be a bias of like, oh, well, I know this one's going to be good.
Right, right.
And so there were some that I, had a general idea, or like the SM58. I just know how much they are because
Everybody knows that.
but it was really interesting because some of the ones that I liked, it wasn't necessarily that it was the most expensive one. It was just as we analyzed them, we learned that it was a specific type of microphone that, oh, that one just receives my voice really well. And so I thought that was just really interesting. And I could even hear, and, part of it, I was in my studio here, I had my in ears in. And so that's different as well, right? I'm not in a live context, but I could hear the difference even singing live. You hear just a little bit of like a timbre difference, a tone difference,
Mhm.
and which is just so interesting because like you said, you think a mic is a mic, but it's not. So that was kind of my general assessment as I went through it.
That leads me to a question. And again, yeah, I noticed, again, you sang them very consistently. I was very impressed. But as a singer, did you find that distracting? Because I think if you're comfortable with a mic, and
Mhm.
and again, that's a really excellent point about the in ears, that this mic is not only being used in the PA, but it's also feeding your monitors, whether they
Mhm.
be wedge or ear. Um, how much of an impact does that make on you and your confidence as you're singing, and your comfort as you're singing?
Yeah, when the mic is different or the sound of it is different.
Right.
Yeah, it does impact a bit, and that's an interesting question and an interesting perspective because a lot of times when I work with churches, the vocalists will tell me that they don't feel comfortable with their in-ears. Like they don't like it. They don't like that it feels closed in. I mean, I have mine in right now just cuz I use them in here for broadcasts and stuff like this, but they don't like how it how it makes them sound in their
Right.
ears. And so they're trying to get over that hurdle as well. And so then if they have a microphone that isn't, producing a great
Mhm.
sound or it's different all the time, it is a little bit of a confidence issue, a little bit, because it's like, okay, is this me? Is it
Right.
the sound engineer? Is it the microphone? And I it's very hard for me to ever be the one that is like, I think that you back there in the booth are not doing a great job. Like I would never say that.
Oh, bless your heart.
And well, yeah, and I mean, I've been on stage with some people who do, and it's super awkward. So
One
guys,
reason I don't like being a monitor engineer, I'll just say
yeah,
that. Yeah.
guys, let's be nice to our people in the booth.
Hey, can
Let's
I get a
just
little talent in my monitor? I'll
we
do what
had
I
just
can.
as a side note, we had one year at an event at Overflow where we had like 10 people with monitors with, wireless in-ears. And I just felt like I wanted to give a big gift basket to that monitor engineer at the
Oh,
end of the
they're the
weekend. Of course, he was
saints of our
paid, but
industry.
yeah, it's just like he had so much to deal with, and he's learning everybody's names, and like just it was it was quite the ordeal. And of course, why I say that is because all of these vocalists are walking into a scenario they haven't worked with me necessarily before. They haven't worked with my crew or any of this equipment or these mics, and so there is a little bit of a lack of confidence because you're walking into something that is not your rhythm. It's not what you're used to. And so, yeah, I think when the microphone changes all the time, it is definitely a little bit of it makes you kind of go, okay, is that,
Yeah, is that my tone? Is that my timbre? Or is it the preamp? Or is it the mic? Or is it, but something's just not right. And it
yeah.
doesn't, to use musician term here, right? It's hard to get in the pocket. It just
Hmm.
doesn't, things don't just kind of come together. And, so that's what I'm hearing from you anyway.
Yeah.
That it becomes more you have to consciously think about and overcome. And you can't just feel it, which by the way is it's a subtle nod to my good friend who's the opera and voice instructor at our local university, and they were talking. Somebody else was telling him, "Well, anybody can sing. You just have to feel it more." And he goes, "No, it's physics. You have to lift your soft palate." He's like, "You can't just feel your way to being a good singer." So
Right.
anyway, this is just not a nod to him. He won't. I don't know if he'll ever see this, but I think he'll
Yeah.
he'll chuckle if he does. So
Yeah. No, it's true. And I think with the varying microphones, one of the things that is a challenge is like you have different effects too. Like you have different EQs, or you have if someone
yeah,
has reverb or not reverb, or whatever. And so we as vocalists, and I'm not, I understand everybody has to adapt, but I'll just speak to the vocalists for a moment because we're doing a vocal mic thing. But all vocalists have to be willing and ready to adapt very quickly and easily when you're in different situations with different microphones, different, you know, in ear mixes and all that. And you understand why people who tour full time bring their mix engineer with them. They bring their monitor engineer with them.
and
They
they bring
bring
their
their
own mics with them.
microphone.
Yeah.
Yep. And,
Plus,
you,
microphones are like toothbrushes. So
right.
I mean, just saying. Oh, you'll notice that. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you'll notice my mic has a
Yes.
disposable cover on it. I don't think. I mean, I don't know. I probably won't be able to use those with tours. They do have a slight change to the sound, but nothing substantial. But boy, I tell you what, for rentals, I love those things.
Hmm.
my mics are just so much cleaner. It's
Oh, I
crazy. It took a
bet.
pandemic to figure that out, but
Yes.
yeah, not having to clean near as much gross stuff out of them. That's a whole other
Yeah.
incredible topic.
Which we did.
Oh, we
So
did.
you
Yeah,
can
we
go
did.
back and watch video on that as well.
You know what? I think what you're hearing here is there's a lot of great videos you can go back and watch. So,
Agreed.
and more
Agreed.
to come.
Yes. So let's talk about these different microphones a little bit
Mhm.
because we are going to play these clips for you guys.
Mhm.
And
We promise we're really going to play them eventually.
I promise, I mean,
Hang in there.
in like 10 minutes, right? No, in
Yeah.
like 1 minute here. We'll just set it up for you guys. So, Ben, we grouped together mostly like two main brands. So, do you want to just talk really briefly about that before we play these for everybody?
Yes, and this is not at all intended to be a slight to all the other brands.
Yeah.
But the fact is, we try to keep our shows to about 25 to 30 minutes. And just with the two main brands, the duopoly that is microphones of Sennheiser and Shure, who control 80% of the mic market between the two of them, uh, we had a pretty good list. So this is
Hmm.
not at all a slight to brands like Evie, who I love their mics,
Yeah.
Audio
So good.
Technica, AKG. There's so many great microphones out there. So this is not a slight to those. And in fact, maybe, I'm sort of talking us into a future show, or maybe we have a little bit of a, microphone death match or something and say, well, let's take some, similarly priced dynamic cardioids and put them up against
Yeah.
each other. Maybe that's something we'll do in the show. We've got a couple on our list, and that'll be a great way to start that. So, uh, excuse me, in no particular order, we picked a few, and I'm just got my list in front of me here. We picked a few of the most popular from Sennheiser and Shure. Of course, Sennheiser's, Evolution series, the E835, which is a great dynamic cardioid, the 845, and then the 865, which is a condenser. And then we also included their brand new, the MD 435, yeah,
Hmm.
435 and 445. So new, I don't even the model number memorized
Yeah.
yet. And then, of course, they have a premium brand in Neumann, and we
Hmm.
included the KMS 105 as well. And then from Shure, which of course is another. I mean, they are the 800-pound gorilla, so to speak, in microphones. We've got some of their most popular ones, the SM58, probably the most popular mic in the world in terms of
Yeah.
unit sales. Um, but then we also included things like the Beta 58, the Beta 87, which I like. And we had a KSM 8 in there too, which I
Okay.
by and large really like that mic. So it's important to note that we went with really good mics
Hmm.
from the two best known brands. So, we wanted to keep this kind of an equitable comparison,
Yeah.
of good mics at varying price points. And again, as Andrea said, you're going to hear there are some very substantial differences, as we've talked about in previous shows, in terms of sensitivity and frequency response. But you're also going to hear some very nuanced differences. So now
Hmm.
you could say, why does Shure make, you know, 20 different microphone models? Actually, it's probably more like 200.
Yeah.
Why does Sennheiser make so many different mics? And so I think that'll be really interesting to see. And then I've also, because I'm a nerd, if you're new to this show, I'm the nerd. I'm the guy wearing the Star Wars T-shirt,
Yes.
uh, and has things like wave guides and things in the back of me there and
Yes.
whatever. So I've also measured the RMS value of the electrical signal of these microphones, and I think Michelle will put those things as well as values from the loudness penalty site up as you see a picture of the microphone and you hear Andrea sing those clips.
Yeah, sounds great. So let's take a listen, everybody. Here we go. We're gonna play them all side by side, and then we'll come back and talk a little bit about it.
Buckle up.
Come and see what the Lord has done. Come and worship. He is worthy. Come and see what the Lord has done. Come and worship. He is worthy. Come and see what the Lord has done. Come and worship. He is worthy. Come and see what the Lord has done. Come and worship. He is worthy. Come and see what the Lord has done. Come and worship. He is worthy. Come and see what the Lord has done. worship. He is worthy. Come and see what the Lord has done. Come and worship. He is worthy. Come and see what the Lord has done. Come and worship. He is worthy. Come and see what the Lord has done. Come and worship. He is worthy. Come and see what the Lord has done. Come and worship. He is worthy. Come and see what the Lord has done. Come and worship. He is worthy. Okay, everybody. So you heard them all side by side, and hopefully you noticed the differences like we did. Just a little bit. Some of them are very subtle, some of them are very noticeable. But the idea is, I think for me, I would want to point out that they all still sound good. You
Yeah,
know,
they're all
there's,
good mics.
yeah, they're all good mics. And so there's not one that it's like, wow, that's horrible. We should never use that one. They're all really good mics.
There are mics we could have done that too, but that's just not how we roll. So
Yes,
we stuck with good mics from good brands. So.
exactly. Yes. And so I want to point that out because before we move into some of our more side-by-side comparisons and some specifics, I think it's important to point that out for you. If you're in a church situation where you're looking for new mics and you're trying to figure out what's best for your vocalist, there's not one from this list that is going to do poorly for you. They're
Right.
going to sound great. They're going to work great. They're going to be easy to use. And so you can't really go wrong with any of them from the list. And so I think that's something that's important to point out. You think, Ben, too?
Absolutely. And in fact, one of the things that if I didn't know who I was miking, uh, then I have to just sort of make a pick, right? And I definitely have some sort of utility mics, and a couple that I guess I can just really say would be like the 835 or the SM58.
Okay.
Both would come out of my case pretty regularly, where I say, okay, these are good sounding mics. They're consistent. I know how they're going to respond, and certainly if I knew the singer and I knew how their sound was a little bit better, and of course we noticed with your voice definitely some difference
Mm-hmm.
for whatever reason. Cardioids sound better than supercardioids,
Mm-hmm.
and it could be the way that you address the mic as a singer. It could be a lot of things. So those are things I probably wouldn't know at that point. So I'd go, well, I'm going to start with one of these two, and
Yeah.
I know what the mic's going to do, and from there, it's just a matter of working with the singer. So I think translating that into the worship environment, uh, if you're a novice sound person, and thank you and bless you for serving your
Mm-hmm.
congregation, it's good to have consistency.
Yeah.
That becomes a known entity at that point. You're like, okay, well, I know the microphone now. But then there's those opportunities. If you are fortunate enough to have somebody like Andrea, which I don't know that anybody does, you know, then you could begin to work with them and discover those things, tonally, because if she sounds good naturally, the less work I have to do in the board, the better. So don't do things that are kneecapping your singer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just let them be themselves and let them sing and sound good naturally. Makes your job much easier in the end. And I realize that's a journey, is kind of the point.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at the end we'll talk about which ones Andrea liked and which ones she'd want to use.
Yeah.
So um,
Yeah.
I felt like I had another point I wanted to make, but you're gonna have to bail me out here. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I think what we were chatting about before we hit record was also the perspective from the singer and the perspective from the booth,
Yes.
and how do we navigate that? So it's like if the singer, as a singer, if you know your voice, I think it's really helpful to let your tech people know that, like, you know, maybe you have a very airy high, head voice. Okay, so that's going to be really helpful for them to know. Or if you just belt everything, maybe that's going to be helpful to mention, but maybe you also need to work to tone that down a little bit and not belt everything, because you'll over just kind of, they won't even maybe need the mic depending on the space, right? And so things that we can do as singers to help our engineers is great, but it's also not very likely in a church scenario where a singer would walk in and be like, I want this mic, right?
Right.
So, like for example, I have an SM58 in my road case that I take with me everywhere, and the only reason I do is if I get into a church and they're like they don't have a great microphone, and they're worried and fretting about it. And I'm like, well, do you just want me to use this one? I can, but it's not something where I walk in and I'm like, here, figure this out. I have to use this
Right.
microphone.
No, it's just they're super
Um,
consistent. You can count on it being what it is every time. Yeah.
exactly. And so that actually makes their job just a little bit easier
So
because it's,
do you think that's going to change the mic you carry now after this show? Do you think that's going to? I'm just curious.
yeah, maybe
Yeah, I
it
wondered.
might.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might. Cause I did like that. I did
Oh,
like
don't give it
that.
away yet. Don't give it away
I
yet.
won that one.
Yeah, that one. Don't give it
There was
away.
a
Yeah.
couple actually, my two favorites. So anyways,
I was wondering if I was going to get my mics back. Actually, so
I did send them back.
yes, I know you did. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just think for vocalists, I just want to speak to you guys for a minute to come at it with a helpful attitude of like, maybe these are some of the nuances about my voice or some of the things I've learned, but also just being willing and ready to serve. And, because, churches' budgets and availability and, your tech personnel's experience level, all of that is going to play into it. So we want to simplify. We don't want to make things harder for people with coming in with, difficult mics to use or difficult
Right.
requests. So what does that look like from the booth then, Ben? Perspective from the booth for simplification and all of that.
Well, again, consistency. That if you have a consistent stable of mics, then you know what the mic is going to do. If
Mm,
you have kind of a mixed match of mics and it's not purposeful, there's no reason. It's just that's what you got. That does make your job much harder. You'll have very substantially different gain settings and EQ settings just because of the mic, not because of the singer. And then add the singer into the mix, right?
yeah.
So unless you have a vocalist where you've determined for a specific reason that a particular mic works better, I mean consistency is a nice thing.
Yeah.
I think until you get comfortable, starting to mix and match mics. And you mentioned budget, so I think that's a great place to start.
Mhm.
And again, this is not to pick on any mic, but we found that among two mics there was a substantial difference.
Mhm.
And we mentioned the SM58, probably the most widely used mic in the world. Um, but we compared it to another $99 dynamic, dynamic cardioid microphone.
Mhm.
Kept wanting to say dynamic condenser, which doesn't exist. Those are two completely conflicting things. My brain is having a
Yeah.
moment. So, we just took that and compared it side by side with the 835, and we're going to play those two clips for you right now, back to back, and just let you hear that.
Come and see what the Lord has done. Come and worship. He is worthy. Come and see what the Lord has done. Come and worship. He is worthy. All right.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So, I mean, wow, a pretty substantial difference. And again, neither mic is a bad mic.
Mm,
But if you have two of these on stage and you're trying to set up the board, you can see that your settings are going to be very different between two channels before anybody even walks up to the stand.
mm. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I think it's really, really helpful to know those kinds of things, right? Like that's why I love this. I love this comparison because, like you said, they're both equally um, equal in price, excuse me. And so that's really helpful to see that there's going to be a significant difference. And so then it's just a matter of either it walking in, so you're ready,
Right.
or if you can help it, to simplify and maybe streamline those microphones, unless, like Ben said, you had a vocalist who you knew, okay, this, she or he can have this one because I know it will work well for their voice.
Yeah. I mean, and yeah, like you said, not only identical in price, but also they're both dynamic cardioids.
Mm-hmm.
They're identical in class and form.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously clearly not identical in terms of the sound they produce. Now, that being said, Andrea, if you or any other touring artist said, I want an SM58, you got it. And like you said, you carry one. They're consistent. Everybody knows what they're like. So I've never told a touring artist that they couldn't have a mic they wanted ever. I have with artists I've worked for over a long period of time and have developed a relationship of mutual trust. I've said, I'd like to try this mic.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to try this. I'd like to try that. And again, being mindful that what I get in the house is only a half the equation. They
Mm-hmm.
have to love what they hear in their monitor.
Yep.
They have to be confident and they have to be comfortable with that mic. So change can be very hard for
Yeah.
artists. Sometimes though, change is an amazing thing. It's like, pulling away a
Yeah.
fuzzy filter and they're like, wow, I really like this mic better. Where has this been my whole life? Because, technology is constantly evolving and changing. So that being said, are we ready for the grand reveal? Because I think everybody wants to hear. I don't know.
Yeah. I
All
think
right.
so.
So tell us how you felt about the mics and what you liked about them, and kind of your two favorites.
Okay. Sounds good. So I would say, I mean, across the board, I liked a couple of the Sennheiser mics. They kind of stood out to me over the rest of them. And again, it's not that the other ones were terrible. It was just my own preference and I know my voice and so I could hear like, oh, there's a more clarity and there's a natural warmth there. And so I would say I probably lean towards more towards the Sennheiser than the Shure. But again, like I said, I have an SM58 in my case, so it's not that I don't like them.
Oh
But
yeah, I own hundreds of Shure mics. I mean,
yeah,
Shure
so
doesn't make bad mics by any means.
right. But my two favorites were the MD435 and
Mhm.
then the
Which
one.
is brand new, by the way. It's a brand new model. So
Yeah, I didn't know that
something
actually.
you wouldn't have had a year ago, even to compare to. So
Yeah, I didn't know that, which so that's cool. I was excited that I got to try it. And then my other favorite was the Neumann, the KMS
uh,
105. Is that what it was?
yeah,
Is-
yep, KMS 105, and Neumann's a premium mic for sure. And it is interesting and worth noting, and maybe somewhat validating, that the two mics you picked are the two most expensive. So
yes,
guess I guess now you know where the money goes,
right.
But yeah,
Yeah, and like I said before, I did not research, even though I'm a researcher, and so that would be like my default. I purposefully did not research the prices before I hit record because I wanted an unbiased.
right.
But I think, like you said, it's validating that obviously there's a reason why they're more expensive. They are really great microphones, but we have economical options that sound great.
Yeah.
But if you're really like listening with a discerning ear and kind of picking apart the sound and saying, okay, what do I like about this? What do I dislike about this? Those were my top two favorites.
Fun. Awesome. Well, I'll send this link to your husband for Christmas shopping too. So
Yeah, there you go. Thanks. Yeah.
what she wants in her stocking is a Neumann microphone. So
Yeah, it'll fit. It'll fit right in there.
perfect. Yes.
It's the perfect size. Yeah. So I would say this was really insightful for me too. And hopefully for everybody else, this was helpful and insightful. And I think, Ben, what would be great is if when this video goes live, we'll find a way to also post the list of the microphones because they'll play through quickly on the video, but maybe
Right.
we can post a document or something like that. We'll find a way in the group to get that to you guys, and even Ben's analysis of all of the RMS values and everything like that if people are interested in that. So we'll get a document put together for you guys as well for those of you who want to know.
Yeah, good call. That's a great suggestion. And viewers and members of our community, if there's mics you want to see us go head to head, I'm sure Andrea would be willing to do more singing. So
Yeah, absolutely. Let us know and let us know what questions you guys have. If there's specifics, either Ben or myself, it'll probably be, if it's a very specific question, it'll need to be Ben. So if he doesn't see it, I'll tag him. But if you're interested in, asking more questions, please do it in the group because we love to hear from you guys. All right, everybody. We'll see you next time. I don't know which date that is, but it'll be a surprise. We'll just pop up live.
that's right. Exactly. We're here. Hey.
There we are. Awesome. Thanks for joining, everybody. Thanks, Ben. This was great.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye, guys.